So this is a tribute to Albert Marrero. So tell people who Albert was and what he meant to you and what he meant to the scene.
Yeah, Albert was actually a good friend, um, and basically a walking encyclopedia of music. You know, he has so much knowledge, and it's like, he was, aside from being a walking encyclopedia, I think he was also a walking jukebox, because he would sing to, like, you would mention a record, a song to him, and right away he would, he had like such good memory. Like, he remembered like all the lyrics of like all the songs. And I'm talking about, a lot of like new and old, and aside from that, also he worked many years with for Frankie Ramos at Downtown Records. I remember I used to go see him. The first location, it was on Worth Street. I can't remember the exact year. I think it was 81 or 80, or maybe I think it was like around that time. And I remember going to his store, to the store, to Downtown Records, and he was always in the back behind the counter as you walked in, because it was like kind of a little narrow. And he he was also, I guess, he would do distribution with Joe Gomez at Downtown, but they were also, Albert was also, I think he did promotions for a lot of, I think, for Profile Records, also a lot of the hip hop groups back then when they were just starting out. Um, he was definitely, always, he would come out, not as much, but he would go out to promote whatever artists or their records, their new record. And he also, he had mentioned to me one time, his favorite place to go was the Loft. That's what he definitely loved going to the Loft for the system. And the thing is, he will be out, like, I guess, going to different clubs to give records to the DJs, but he would always end up at the end at the Loft, or even on a day that he wasn't working, or he would go afterwards. Just that was his place, his favorite place. Yeah. And
Go ahead.
yeah, and he also, Albert, he wasn't a DJ, and people, and if he, I mean, he knew how to play records, of course, but I think if he would stick to that, he would have been a great DJ, because just because of his selection, and he had good taste. And even when they had the store, there was something special about that store, and that's what I like going there. They moved, several years. I mean, after, to, I think, 26th Street, which I rarely went, but he when they were at Worth Street, they cater a lot to ordering a lot of imports. So they were getting stuff that nobody else was getting. Maybe Charlie from Vinyl Mania was getting, most of those imports, but for some reason they were getting like all the really good stuff, like, Eddie Grant, Time Warp, Walking into Sunshine, Sun Palace, that was like his favorite, and Rude Movements. He also, all the jazz funk stuff that was coming out of the UK, Journey to Powerline, the Funk Masters. He was getting all that stuff before anyone, here in the States. And he was basically putting everybody on to these records. I mean, you would walk in the store, and right away, if he knew you, he had a little stack for you of, all the new imports that were coming out. Yeah. He definitely, was a big inspiration to me, like a big brother, but also a musical, a comrade, and definitely someone that I looked up to a lot. And actually, when um I started doing the parties with Victor Rosado and Steve Martinez, um Albert, it's like we all were doing our own thing, but for some reason, Steve ran into Victor, got his phone number. He told him he was in contact with me, and same thing with Albert, and we all just met up. And next thing we know, we having a party, and Albert was the host, greeting the people at the door with his jokes. He was very sarcastic, very, very funny guy. Like really, really funny, down to earth, man. Very humble and just a great stand-up guy.
So, controversial question. How much money would you spend a week on records with Albert?
Um, Basically that was like one of my earlier beginnings of me, buying records. And I remember, I probably had a summer job working for uh with the kids after school program and the camp, as a counselor. And my paycheck, it would go to records, like basically whatever we made. Then again, $200, 150, that was a lot back then. It was different times. And not only that, the records were cheaper. I remember Sound Factory and J&R. I mean, a 12-inch was like $2.99, $1.99, even back then. So you brought a lot of records with $50, $100. Yeah.
Did he ever put you onto a track that really wasn't your style, but you were like, wow, I like this?
Yes, 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 yes. Uh, to me back then, it was just stuff that I think it was just they were records that they were, um I guess, AOR stuff, or stuff that like Mark Hamish was playing, you know at his club, and more like on the rockish side. But a lot of stuff, I could remember, Kiss Me Tintin, which actually Francois remixed. I think he turned me on to that. Also, there was a Tim Tom Kodak, which was, I think it was French, and that's something that he played. I mean that he turned everybody onto. And Kenny Carpenter used to play that at Bonds, and that's the only person I heard playing that. And also Raul Soto at Broadway 96. And that was, now it's when that record, I guess, with the internet and everything, world, global, every, DJs everywhere. Now is when that record got exposure a few years back. But before, no, a lot of people didn't know that record, especially without the internet and something from Europe coming over here. And there were tons of stuff like that too. Even stuff from here, like I remember, From a Hilltop. Also, it's just so much stuff that he turned me on. A lot of import stuff. Blank Minaj, Feel It, like so much. A lot of stuff was like rock driven, but more like borderline dance. So, it's just, I always loved imports. A lot of good stuff coming from UK, German, just everywhere. France, you know and again, a lot of those records that probably back then, a lot of us took them for granted, but they were good music. If you had good ears, you knew what would work, in a club setting, or just, again, a good record turning people on to something really different and great.
How would you describe him as a person?
um I actually, I'll say, like, I spoke at his eulogy when he passed away. And the first thing that came to my mind was, Albert was always laughing and with a big smile. And I think there's no one that could say anything bad about Albert, because he was such a great guy with everyone. You know, he was a gentle giant. You know, and he I used to tell him, like, Albert, you carrying all this stuff, leave that stuff home, like. And sometimes I would drive him home, or meet up with him to go to meet up to do, because he used to help out Joe Gomez, which they were like partners, and selling records. They were always doing like pop-ups in different places in Williamsburg, Bushwick. So I would tell him, like, leave all that stuff home. But he would also, he had a good heart. He would come with fruits, snacks, and just, give everyone share, and he had no need for that. I used to tell him, yo, take care of your health, and you carrying this big heavy backpack, to please others, but then again, to each his own, I guess, it is what it is.
And then did he have a favorite type of music or a favorite track that he liked? Do you know?
He loved, there's one track that he would always tell me, and that was Sting the Funk Electric. It was on Prelude. That was like his favorite, but he also loved the Motown sound, the Temptations, the Four Tops. He was really into that. Like, and anything like early '70s from the Black Exploitation, like, Truck Turner, Isaac Hayes, Pursuit of the Pimp Mobile, Expansion, Lonnie Liston Smith, all that stuff, pre-disco stuff he loved, you know. Again, also he loved Sun Palace, Fruit Movement. That was one of his favorite, and that was a record from the UK, Mike Collins. That he basically, I think that's the record that he took to the loft, and Dave played it for the first time, and it became a loft classic. And there's people that say that they gave it to Dave. It was Albert that gave it to Dave, and also he had another record, another one that was huge with him, was and he might have given that to Larry, was E2E4, Manuel Goshen. So Albert put a lot of good records in people's hands, you know.
Yeah.
And again, the store catered a lot to a lot of imports, but basically Albert was, ordering and discovering all these records to bring here to the States. Yeah.
And then when the store closed, what did people do for vinyl?
You had High Tech Records. That was a Leroy Washington store. You also had Vinyl Mania. Um, uh, Downstairs, there was still a few records. I mean, there was a lot of records at that time, actually. Um, Also, Rock and Soul was still, I think, was already around at that time. I know Shirley, the owner from Rock and Soul. I think that was her sister. She had a small little store on 36th or 38th Street. I think it was either 9th or 8th Avenue, and we used to go there. It was like a little stereo store. They had like equipment, and in the back they had a few records.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, there was other places to go to, And then at the time, around that time with downtown, that was something new to us, and I think that was like the discovery of whatever was being played or given in the record pool, all this new stuff. So you had Charlie from Vinyl Mania, and you had downtown. So then dance tracks came in the picture. So you had places to go to, But then they moved to 26th Street. That's like, I guess, the what you call that, like it's the flower industry,
Yeah, the
I
Flower
guess.
District. Yeah, the Flower District.
Flower District, and they moved on that block. I think it was 26th Street. I went there like once or twice, and then again, the music was really evolving at the time too, changing. And I mean, a few years after, you had the freestyle and the hip hop, and it was like a lot of things going on.
No, thanks
Yeah,
for sharing.
yeah.
Uh,
Now
and any final words or any final thoughts on Albert?
um, his spirit lives on, man. He's here with us. You know, the music lived through his through his spirit is here, and it's someone that it's a friendship I always cherish. He was a gentleman, a true diehard music lover.
Mm.
He loved music. He lived it, breathed it, everything. That was his thing. He lived for music.
Tell us about Albert and what he meant to the scene.
Albert was a beacon of musical genius. He was a walking encyclopedia. He was the type of person where any well, Downtown Records, basically. He knew everyone and he had a pile for everyone. Everyone that walked in there, he had a specific pile of records for, the specific taste to those individuals. And he would, make you blow your budget because you got to get this, you got to get that, and you're not going to see this again. And that was Albert. And he left the world of the living, but in the spiritual aspect of the musical vibe, he's still with us, and we always see signs of Albert. And yeah, it's
Absolutely.
yeah, he's in a better place, pain free.
Talk to us about, do you remember when you first met Albert?
Albert, you're going 35 years. Yeah, okay, I can see you. Yeah, I got you on the big screen over here. Albert, going back, oof, uh, Worth Street, for the better part of maybe 38, 40 years. And then, record stores close, and you lose touch. And after 20 years or so, we linked back up. And yeah, it's basically a good lifetime in the music collecting world, vinyl world. Albert was a key figure, even for other competitors, other competing record shops. He would find them records that they were looking for. Yeah,
Nice. Did he ever put you onto music that really wasn't your bag, but when you heard it, you were like, oh wow, this is fantastic?
yeah, he did that all the time. Every piece he sold me is still in my library. Um, I was never in a record pool. I would go digging and going back to the clubs. Everything that was the DJs played, Ken Carpenter, Timmy, Larry, especially Mancuso. I would make it, my business to get the name of that title. And if I didn't get the name of it, I would get it the following week and then search for it. So it was the hunt, the thrill of the hunt. And Albert will always add a piece or two. And, there's so many. They're still in the library. And, you forget about them. And then you start going through your library, you rediscover pieces. And a lot of them I wrote given by Albert, the time, the date, and the day. And yeah,
Oh, wow.
a lot of history. Yeah.
Albert was like a historian. Albert knew all the record labels before I ever met any of them. And he worked at Downtown Records, and he would go and get all the records, and he was very, very nice guy. Very nice guy. It's funny because I don't know exactly what to say because it's
Well, it's just your experience with him, like, so talk to us about, would you buy records from him? Would you buy them every week, every month? Did he ever
oh, I
put
went
you?
there almost every day. I went there to when they were on 6th Avenue. I was a record junkie for real. You can't see my house, but there's records everywhere in here. and he would be at the front of the store with all the new records and stuff, or you would be in the store and he would pop up with a whole bunch of new records. So you wanted to be the first online to get them. So yeah.
And then did he ever put you on to music that really wasn't your bag, but you were like, oh wow, I love this?
I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that. I just remember him going and having all the promos and stuff like that. I think he had a lot of stuff from like Atlantic Records and stuff like that I would get from him, you know, so.
How much would you spend per week on records with him?
I got into trouble, actually, shopping with Downtown Records because I also knew the owner, Frankie. I had like an account with them. I had like a revolving credit with them. I could easily spend $1,000 in a month with those people. Yep. That's how bad it got. And then I had to stop. I was like, nope, you can't be doing this. You're spending way too much money buying records. And, other people bought drugs. I bought records. You know, I was like, no, this I can see. That's perishable. You know, when you finish with that, it's over. But the music in your hand and the feeling that you got from it, you would have forever. So
That's so well said. Tell people, before we get into your friendship with Albert, tell people who Albert was and how important he was to the New York City record scene.
Well, Albert was very important to the scene because he was always about music. He was always on top of music. He was always looking for the next big thing. He always had an open ear. He was very, how would you say? He was a sponge. He was a sponge for everything new coming, all types of music. He had no boundaries. He was so open to anything that was musical. It didn't matter where it came from, who made it. Albert was open to give it a chance to make an impression and to turn other people onto it. And he was very into it, very excited about new things. He was almost like kind of like a child when they discover a new toy. That's how Albert was about new music, new records. And he was even more enthusiastic about turning people on to the same thing and wanted them to feel and understand why he felt that way about the music. And it spread like wildfire a lot of times.
Tell us when, where, and how you met Albert.
Well, like Cat Ayala, Albert and myself, we all lived within a half a block of each other. Albert lived on 104th Street and Amsterdam, Columbus. I lived on 103rd and Columbus, and Cat lived on 103rd and Columbus. So it was like almost like the Bermuda Triangle, right? He was at one point, I was at the other, and she was at the other one. And Albert, basically, I grew up knowing Albert. We were kids. He was a little older than me, but I knew his mother, I knew his father, I know his daughter. Also, the owner of the record store, Frank Ramos of Downtown Records, lived a block and a half from my house. So it was very close quarters. And, you know, music being what it was and me being involved in the music just allowed us to connect in so many different ways. I mean, we had a personal relationship and we also had a musical relationship, you know, just everything intertwined, different parts of life. But Albert was there, you know, he was there constantly. Albert was, I can't remember a moment in my life musically where Albert wasn't there or a part of it.
Tell us a moment where Albert introduced you to a record that may have changed your set or musical direction that wasn't typically what you would play.
Let's see. David Sylvain. It was a record by David Sylvain that was very avant-garde. He also loved Brian Briggs' Ale on Bearsville Records. He liked records that were so different. He also loved the mainstream stuff, but he loved different things. And one of the mainstream records that he turned me on to that he was very excited about was Pleasure, Take a Chance. I mean, he had a box of them, and he just gave me one. He says, here, you got to take this home and listen to this. And I listened to it, And yeah, he was right. He was right about all the records he turned me on to. And even if I didn't like it at the beginning, I would learn to like it, and it basically happened the way he said it would happen. I just had to give it a chance, and then my mind opened up to it. But he was very apt to knowing those things and not having to go through the approval, the time period. He knew from the very beginning what was going to be a big hit, what was a great record.
Albert was also known for making people feel very welcome when they came into the record store. Talk about that.
Well, you got to remember, Albert had that personality, that smile, that infectious laugh. That was just Albert. He greeted people with open arms. He always had something in common with everybody. He always knew people on a personal level. People trusted him musically, so he was able to pull records for you. Some people wouldn't even ask or listen to the records. They just took them and ran out of the store. He would save certain records. He knew certain people like certain records and what their taste was. So he would have that stack of records ready for you Friday when it would come for the record store to receive all the new imports and stuff like that. Albert was on top of things. He knew what everybody's taste. He knew what everybody was playing. And, that was just Albert. And, he was very social and musical. I mean, when you say music, he was the epitome of music. He really was. I mean, he was, let's say, like the Quincy Jones of the record store,
Nice. Did Albert ever introduce you or connect you with other DJs or producers?
Oh yeah, all the time. That was just the norm. Remember back then, it's not like now that people are very distant. Back then it was more of a community. It really was. It's not like now. I mean, they say it's a community, but it really isn't. Not in the sense where we would all go to the record store, we would meet their producers, DJs. Everybody was just much more family oriented. It was a very, very great thing.
Got it. Tell us about Albert. Did he ever make recommendations that helped you take risks or change how you played?
No, because I mean we were in sync when it came to that. I mean we're from the same cloth, you know what I mean? And yes, he would turn me onto records and things like, let's say like was it Delight? It was Kool and the Gang, a record called, I believe, Hot Rod. Something called Hot Rod, instrumental on RCA Records. I mean, Albert, it was extensive. He shared a lot of knowledge with me. I learned a lot from Albert. And, you got to remember also, those times, there was so much music coming out, and nothing ever sounded like anything else. It's not like today, everything sounds the same. Everything is two-dimensional. Everything's flat. Back then, even if you were a one-hit wonder, some people had a unique sound. Nobody copied from anybody. Everybody had their own thing going on. And Albert was the one to pick up on all that and say, hey, man, you got to check this out. You got to, whether it be hip-hop DJs, salsa, R&B, funk, disco, all the way up to when house music came out. Albert was on top of things. He was like the server to a computer. Network. The network was Albert. He was like, everything went through him. And then he just made sure that everybody, it's like a tree that has branches, right? The tree absorbs the water through the trunk, and then it feeds all the branches that then feeds all the vegetation and the leaves. That was Albert.
I love it. That's a great analogy. Talk to us about the record store. I feel like in that era, the record store was not just about buying records, but about a community. Talk about that element.
Well, yeah, it was a community. People networked through the stores. Producers came into the stores and bought records, it was like a testing ground as well as the clubs, like the Garage, for instance, or the Loft. They would bring a record that wasn't out yet, like a test of it, to people like Albert so that he could give them, because they knew that Albert was the person to go to because he knew so many DJs and he knew so many tastes and so many people in certain clubs and certain spaces that he was in communication with. They just, they wanted his opinion. They valued it, you know? They really, really, really valued Albert's opinion. They really did. You know, everyone did. And the store was a meeting place, you know, for that. It was like a networking thing, you know, and Fridays especially, you know, that's when the records came from the distributors. All the new stuff came in on Friday, right before the weekend, you know. Everybody wanted their new stuff, you know, for the weekend. So Albert was there for that. He was ready to go. I mean, and he was always available to talk to you. He never was that person to kind of like shut you down, or, you know, he made time for you. He really did, you know, and yeah, he was really a gem. He really was. I mean, you know, they say in our lifetimes, certain types of people come once in a lifetime. And the enthusiasm, the knowledge, the passion that Albert has only comes once in a lifetime. You know, I mean, just like we had James Brown, Aretha Franklin, you know, people like that, Etta James, that only come once in a lifetime. Well, Albert is one of those. You will never see another Albert because the time, the space, the moment, the musicality, the musicians, just everything, you know, falls into place to create a certain energy. And Albert was the collection of all of these elements coming together, kind of emanating from one person to everybody else that he knew. I mean, he would scream from the rooftops if he had to let you know about a new record and how great it was and what potential it would have.
What do you think his lasting impact will be on the local music scene?
Well, you know, unfortunately, in the state of the way things are today, I mean, people know who Albert was, whoever's old enough to know, but the new kids really don't, you know, and then once the record stores are gone, which Downtown Records is gone, Vinyl Mania is gone, all these outlets where people socialized are gone. So either what we're doing now, doing this interview so that people know who came, who left, what they contributed, writings, books, interviews, films, media, you know, other than those things existing, unfortunately, people like Albert will only last as long as the people that experienced him and remembers him are still around. Unfortunately, time is not friendly to those things. Time does not permit for people to have longevity, you know, in the air. They have to either be documented, like we're doing now, and they have to be continuous through the documentation where people can grab a book and read about it. Unfortunately, back then we didn't have social media, which is a setback, because we could have captured so many beautiful things that are now gone, that they only exist as long as the people that experienced those people and those things in those moments. Sad, right? But it's true.
Is there a lesson or philosophy that you'll always learn from Albert that you carry with you going forward?
Oh, Albert never shut the door on any possibility. He always gave everything a fair shake. He always listened, and he says, well, he tell you, well, sweetie, if it isn't for you, there's somebody else that'll come in and will buy that record. Don't worry. Here, try this one. You know, but Albert always told you, give it a chance. You never know. You know, everything has its place. You just have to find that moment. Might not be now, might not be tomorrow, but it'll come. So I always take that with me. You know, sometimes For instance, I pull records to play on my show, and I want to play them, I want to hear them, but the moment isn't right. The moment doesn't arrive where the vibe takes me to that record that I want to play so bad. So sometimes I wait a month before I get to that record, although I've pulled it weeks ago. It just doesn't happen, and you should never force something. It should always be that the moment, the energy, the music takes you to that next step where that record fits perfectly and complements what came before, so that you find yourself there. Albert taught me that. He said, it doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. You'll get to it. So I take that with me all the time. All the time.
I love that. How would you describe his character in 3 words?
Oh my God. Unpredictable, happy, energy. Jesus Christ. If they could bottle that energy, we'd have a new resource to power the cities. I tell you, Albert was really something else. You know, he really, really, really was.
If you
Yeah.
could play Albert one last track, what would it be and why?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
If you could play Albert one last track, what would it be and why?
Let me think. Oh. For the Love of You, the Isley Brothers.
And why?
Yeah. Oh man. We had a lot of close moments, a lot of personal moments. And we would sit in his room. We climb into bed and just sit in his room. He had like a little rinky-dink turntable there, but we could listen to records. And he would always play that record. It made him feel good. He says, wow, listen to these lyrics, So, yeah, that would be it. For the Love of You, the Isley Brothers.
And the last question, what would you say to him if you had the chance to thank him one more time?
I would just say thank you. Thank you for the education. Thank you for allowing me to learn. Thank you for not shutting me down, for not just pushing me away. He always made time for me. And he always made time for my mom and my son. Albert was a family person, There was not a moment where Albert wasn't there for me. For a lot of people, It's just, I miss him dearly. Thank God, we had our rough spots, but before Albert left this earth, we made up and we were in a great place, which gives me a lot of satisfaction.
Is there anything that
We're-
you want to talk to about Albert or speak on about Albert? Any parting words?
Oh, I just hope he's at peace. I hope that he's continuing to play music and inspire anyone, any being, any energy to be part of a musical spectrum. One of his famous words that he loved all the time, that he would tell my son all the time, because my son called him Peace. Because I would always say, peace, peace. But he would see him in the street, So that left a big impression on my son to this day.
What did Albert Marrero mean to you?
Albert Morero was music. He was music. When you first approached him, he represented music. You could tell that he represented music. You could tell that he lived for music. He enjoyed spreading the love of the music. It wasn't just putting on the song, it was, he digested it. You could tell. You could tell the first thing that came to his mind when he woke up that day, it's what new records are going to be out today. when he goes to the record shop.
How did you meet him?
I met Albert Marrero. I never forget, it was the first time that I had gotten a decent summer job when I was a kid. I must have been about maybe like 15, 16 years old. This was summer of 1980. And I remember I wanted to take my music collecting a little bit further beyond the scope of what I was currently collecting. So I said, you know what? The only way I'm going to do that is if I really go out and venture into music land. And I never forget, I went to Lower Manhattan, and this was on Worth Street, down there by the courts in that area. And when I walked up the block, I just happened to walk past a record shop. And little did I know, I didn't know anything about, record shop culture at the moment. What was the hottest thing, whatever, what was the hottest shop. I just happened to walk in. And this particular record shop was called Downtown Records. And no sooner as I walked into the store, like I said, Albert, with his smile and his kind heart, he approached me at the door as I was walking in and gave me a warm welcome. And the first thing he said is, "What kind of music do you like?" And I said, "Well, I like whatever they're playing on WBLS, because I used to listen religiously to the dance parties on Saturday night." And he says, "I got just what you need." And he took me over to, there was a certain section in the record store at the time, and he just took me right to that section. He said, "Here you go. This is what you need. Go through this and let me know what it is that you're familiar with and you're not." And I tell you, while I was in there going through those records, there was not maybe, I would say maybe in like 10-minute intervals, Albert would constantly come over to me. "How's it going? Have you found anything that you like yet? Blah, 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 blah." He made sure that before I left out of that record shop, I was satisfied with all the content that I purchased.
So you went to the store, he told you this is the bin, and then he would check on you every 10 minutes to make sure you were good.
Absolutely. And he was relentless with that. Like I said, he would not leave you alone until you were satisfied, and you were literally leaving the cash register with that brown paper bag, or the white paper bag with the Downtown Record logo on there. Then he knew for sure that his job was done, literally, And he would tell you, I mean, even after you purchased, you made your purchase of those records, he would tell you literally, "Listen, if there's something that you're not happy with, bring it back, and we could probably more than likely exchange it for something that you like." He made you want to come back to revisit. He showed a great deal of concern. The other thing that I remember about Albert is not only with the music itself, but even if you just wanted to talk about something, an issue, something that's bothering you, whatever, he was ears. He was all ears. He would listen. It wasn't always about a sale. He would you could just come there and just talk, really. It wasn't always about just buying records. He would be all ears, and he would always volunteer if you needed help. He says, "Listen, bro." I remember his voice so clearly. He said, "Bro, I'm telling you, listen, if you need help, just let me know." That was Albert. That was Albert. "Let me know, and I'll help you out, man. Just give me a call. Just let me know. I'll be where I'm working, but just let me know." That was the beauty of the relationship.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
How often would you go to the store to buy records? And then controversial question, how much would you spend every week?
Oh, yes, yes. Well, thank goodness I wasn't married at the time. I'd be in the doghouse, trust me. But
She
I
just gave you the side eye when you said
yeah,
that.
I remember. Listen, at the time, it's funny that we're on that subject because someone mentioned to me, in regards to being part of dance music culture, it was a wonderful thing, in that era that I came through, experiencing the breaking of records, releases that were promos that no one heard. The power that the DJ had back then. It was magnificent. I mean, the radio stations used to literally rely on us to report the records that we got from the record pools. Now, keep in mind now, I was getting records from the record pool as well as buying. Okay. So there was a constant influx of music that was coming into the house. Okay. And in answer to your question, in regards to how many times I would visit the record shop, I would literally go to that record shop right after I leave the record pool with about 40 records under my arm already, okay, that I have to listen to, okay? Those are promos. I didn't really know what I had under my arm, but the ones that I knew that were in the shop, or better yet, which we would call, these records we would call imports. They were special pieces. I knew that Albert was the answer. He's gonna have what I need, especially on imports. And I would go in there and I would buy at least 20 pieces of records every Friday. Okay. Yes, every Friday. And I would not leave that store because remember, imports, well, I don't know if you remember, but imports were obviously, they were more money than the domestic vinyl. They were about, I would say, maybe $3 more than what you would pay on average. At the time. You were paying, let's say if you were paying $2 a piece. I remember 12-inch records were $1.99. No, sorry, I'm not answering this. Decline. Yeah. So records were $2 a piece, roughly. So the imports were about $5. So I would leave that store spending close to $175, which was a great deal of money back in 1980. But the money was there. I mean, when you're a resident DJ somewhere, money wasn't really an issue, you know. But you can rest assured, Albert could not wait for you to come through that door. He knew I was coming there Friday after that record pool, okay, to see him. And he would literally have records lined up for DJs, who were consistent buyers. He would have, and what was amazing about Albert? It's like he knew what you wanted. It's like you had a custom batch of records, literally. He said, okay, Trevor, this is what Trevor likes. This is what Andrew likes. This is what Bill likes. He knew, and that's pretty amazing, when I think about it.
Did Albert ever connect you with other DJs or producers through the store?
Actually, he would mention, because I remember when at one time when I was looking to get into production, because everybody and their mother was going through Downtown Records when you think about it. So many different artists and producers and stuff. And I remember he connected me. Actually, I remember he connected me with, you ready for this? The original producer of Set It Off. Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to rock the bells on that right now. But there was a turn of events with that song. And I met the original producer of that song. Whatever transpired between them, well, it's history. Yeah. But it was a beautiful thing knowing that, wow, I met the original producer of this song. Went to the person's house, okay, and met the producer of this record. I remember he connected me with Larry, his name is Larry Joseph. Larry Joseph is the producer of Let's Go Dancing on West End Records. He introduced me to Larry Joseph. Larry Joseph came to my nightclub that I was playing at with the promos of the song before it was even on the air. You know, when we were connecting, he said, "Trev, can I come to your nightclub and put this on before I give this to Larry at the Paradise Garage?" I was like, "Sure, Larry, come on down and test it out," because we had an elaborate sound system too. So, you know, that put him in the zone as far as, you know, whatever adjustments that he had to do on the record itself. You know what I'm saying? If he had to go back into the studio and tweak this or tweak that. So yes, Albert was very instrumental with that.
Sorry, I was on mute. Did his influence extend to clubs, radio shows, and local events at all?
I think it did. I think it did. Like I said, it's like if you're into Christmas and stuff like that and the such, when you get something stuffed in the sock, the candy cane sock, right? It was literally like, you know, the DJs got something stuffed in their candy cane sock, and it's like, yeah, whatever I put in the sock, it's gonna be good. You can rest assured it's gonna be a good track. You're gonna like it. You're gonna get a great response. And I think that a lot of the music that he presented to a lot of the DJs, yes, he was very influential. Very.
What would you say to him if you had one last chance to have a conversation with him?
I would say, Albert, I need one more joke from you. I meant to mention, I forgot to mention that with Albert. I always told him, you know something, when I would come inside the store, the joke was, you know, you're in the wrong profession. You should be doing stand-up. Because Albert was a real comedian, okay? It's almost like after the sale, he had a joke for you. And his joke, believe it or not, sometimes when I think about it, it would be prophesied, because there were things that he would joke about that are actually happening now. I would think about it. I would say, Albert, I need one more joke from you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you want to mention about Albert before I switch topics to you?
Yes. What I'd like to say is, to all the dance community and those that loved him, let's keep his name going, you know? Let's keep his name going, because he really, really loved music. He loved the culture. He loved the people. He loved everyone. And I think it's well deserved that we should keep giving him flowers as long as we can give it to him.
Tell us about Albert Marrero.
Okay, so Albert, love you, Albert. All right. Albert Marrero, to me, he was an incredible friend. He was the king, knowledgeable man of music, dance music, you know. I met him at Downtown Records. You know, he lived in my neighborhood, Upper West Side, but he was just like everybody is always talking about. It's the truth, man. He was a truly loving, uplifting human being who was so passionate about his love for music and his love for life and people, but his love for music was just, it was untouchable. You know what I mean? As I got to know Albert, you know, I used to hang out at Downtown Records like every day after I go clubbing. You know what I'm saying? I'd show up and be like, "Yo, Albert, what's that song that goes dum 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 dum?" He'd be like, "Oh, right there, black record 3 up to the right." You know what I'm saying? every single record. Oh, well, I can't say every single, but like probably 80% of my records, other than the ones I bought secondhand, I got from downtown, from Albert, you know. And funny story, actually, years after, you know, downtown closed, I was still, I would call Albert on the phone like we did so often. I mean, for hours on end, we talked, but I'd be like, Albert, yeah, what's up, Charlotte? What's up, honey? You know, I'd be like, what's that song? You know, it's like, boom, boom, ba, 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 boom. And he'd be like, wait, do it again. I'd be like, got a female vocal, I think, and she's like, you know, and he'd be like, and it would make us laugh, you know what I'm saying? Because, yeah, but, you know, it's, what I love also, like in our conversations, I'm sure he did this across the board. Like anybody listening to this will say, oh, yeah, he did that with me too. Like you have a conversation with him and he'll relate the words that are spoken to lyrics of songs and he'll start singing them right then and there, you know what I'm saying? And it's not interruptive. It's like it's beautiful, you know, like and I miss that. And I've started doing that with people and they just look at me like I'm crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like, Shauna, what the fuck are you singing for? I'm like, oh, never mind, you know. I know, Bear, it's okay, my dog's whining. But he was so gracious, you know, like when I used to live uptown, there was this pizza place called Sal's Pizza. And whenever I used to go and visit him, you know, because he wasn't doing too well in the later years. And we used to go to our favorite pizza shop that we both grew up on. Long story short, he would be coming out to parties, be it, you know, Soul Summit or Vinyl Nights, bring me a piece of Sal's Pizza in a brown paper bag. Here you go, honey, just for you. Every single time, bro, every single time, you know? Albert, I love you so much. I feel him. Every time I go dancing. I look up in the sky. I'm like, there he is, you know, and smiling. And I, uh, yeah. I mean, there's so much I could say. He was a really good friend, but he was like a big brother. And dare I say this, the way he loved. He was like a father almost, like I never thought of it. I never said that, but he reminded me of like how a dad would just covet, you know, his child and raise them up because that's what Albert would do. You know what I'm saying? Like it didn't even have to be that bad of a situation. You know what I'm saying? Like it might be that you had can I say the F word? Had a fucked up day. You know what I'm saying? You're Albert, hard. I had all these dumbasses. Blah, blah, blah. He'll be like, you know what? You're a ray of sunshine and your light lights up the world. And don't let these doo-doo brains get to you. Or, you know, he he would be kind of goofy with it, but he would always make me smile. You know what I'm saying? And homeboy turned me on to a lot of music. And one thing, can I play a song?
Uh,
I'll play
you can, but it's gonna trigger like YouTube music licensing, so we're gonna have to cut it out.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
E2E4 in the background. That was his song and my favorite song, yo.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I won't play it. I was gonna play it, but
Because otherwise they'll take down the video with other people's music.
oh my goodness. Okay, I won't play it.
What
Sorry,
what
YouTube
did
licensing.
I know? What did Albert mean to the dance music community, to the house
Oh
music?
my gosh. I mean, what DJ in New York did not go to Downtown Records and see, you know, ask Albert what's hot, what's not, what you got, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm not really a name person or a fame person, but you know, I know every single DJ from this one to that one. You know, I'm not good at name dropping, but they all went there. I mean, there were a couple of vinyl joints, you know, props to Vinyl Mania, Rock and Soul, you know what I'm saying? But Albert was this quintessential like musical genius, you know, and he turned me on to things like Caetano Veloso, you know, and he's the reason I have some Palace Rude movements. Like I still got all my vinyl, you know what I mean? And I think that he was just, you know, an individual who was well regarded and well loved. You know what I'm saying? Cause Albert didn't get paid for promoting all those records. I mean, he got a job and everything, but he did that from the heart. He did that from the heart, and that big heart, filled with music. And oftentimes, me and him would talk, and we decided, when we die, we don't want it to be like some sad ass, like, we want it to be a celebration of us. You know what I'm saying? And the best way to do that is to have it filled with music. So I sent him my funeral playlist, and he sent me his funeral playlist. And that was precious for his memorial, because he was felt, and his daughter was so thankful. And I was dancing at his memorial a little bit, and people might have thought that was weird, but I know it's what Albert and me want. We want people to be uplifted and loving and living and just like grooving and moving. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, yeah, that's my take. And believe you me, I got my playlist ready. My kids, it's attached to my will. Thank you, Albert, for putting me up on the funeral playlist. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us who Albert was, how you met him, and what he meant to the scene.
Yeah, he lives. He lives on 104th, and I live on 85th Street, very close to each other. We knew each other from the everything, and then um, when I started working for Frankie, I started with Albert, and we would go out a lot to clubs and stuff and events, you know, and everything. Yeah, I mean, he would set me up, call me up for like there was a lot records that I had that I didn't need them anymore, so he got me a lot of people from Europe and so and forth. Guys that were looking for records that I had, and I brought like from Vinyl Mania, that record store. I had a lot of. Uh, they would come and buy a lot of records from me, and Albert would call me. Listen, I got somebody here that's looking for this record and that record, or I got a customer that came in from where this day, this year, this world, this and that place, and they're looking for records. So he would get me a lot of things like that, and as well also when I was working at the at the at the record store. Yeah, do a lot of that.
Nice. And tell us about, you said you sold him your records?
Yeah, he would come when he had a lot of people that that knew that he knew that he was looking for records. So I would bring them over to the apartment, and they would go through I would have like had 2 or 3 or 4 rooms, different rooms for vinyl, and they would come and look over the records, and Albert would be hanging out for there, whenever I have times, things like that. I get them records like things, and I also at work when we were working for Frankie, I would come over. Now I have something that I have some stuff. They would come over. Albert was like, if this person needs a copy of this, if you got any in your home, you got a copy of that, let them know. Let me know so I could get them over. Things like that. So I would get them gloves, things like that. I would also when I was working for with Albert at Downtown Records, I also was at the time I started doing a mix show for BLS. So one of the I had a well-known mix show for BLS back in the days, and Albert and me would get would get would bring, like I would make mixes that would be selling a lot of times. So we always, sometimes we had records that weren't ready, that weren't out for the public yet. So things like that. Mhm.
Nice.
Nice.
Uh, I'm just trying to find the right question. Um, what would you say is Albert's legacy?
Oh, wow. As a friend, I've had I've missed Albert so much. As a friend, as a person, just a person, you know, that was the thing, you know, that he knew what would what a person, we could read. When he and I, we would go to the store for clients. We knew the clients, what they needed for, as a we knew what they like and that what they would want, you know music wise. We knew. Sometimes we would, when we come in, we would tell a person, we get you, what I'm giving you is something that you're going to use at the club, and that's for the club, and this is for yourself. So it would be two kinds of records. All this stuff that I'm giving you now, that's the stuff for you to play at the club, whatever. This stuff is for you yourself. So we knew what people needed. That's how it was. Me and Albert, that was the legacy we had. We knew, they didn't even have to say the name. They just, we would tell you, here, take this, take that, take that, take that, take that. You need that, you need this, and that's it. That's all they need. They don't even needed to listen to it. You know, that's how good we were. You can't do that anymore nowadays. You know, and Albert was for me my best friend here, and you know, never, even though we didn't, because after a while that I became into we got into so much in the club and being a DJ, I didn't have time to hang out with him, but we still kept a touch on each other and knew of the things that were happening with each other, you know. I miss him a lot. I miss him a lot. I miss him so much. You know,
If you could have one more conversation with Albert, what would you say to him?
if I had what?
If you could talk to Albert one last time, what would you say to him?
Why didn't you go? Why didn't you leave me to take me with you? 'Cause right now, being here, I'm being this way. I had a stroke. I had a stroke in life, and being around you, being not with you anymore, or you and him, I'd rather be with him than being here. I am with nobody here. I'd rather be with him right now, wherever he is at. I miss him so much. You know, it's hard because the records, when you sometimes, and I've told people, every record that I've played, that I have in my collection, like vinyl, even if I used to have my vinyls, because I gave all my vinyl to my nephew, who's a DJ also, but I still got it, all the records for my laptops and stuff. But I tell people, their records, every record that I that play, every record that I play brings me a memory. Every record that I've played, the old records, comes in. I get a memory of something that happened, some situation that I happened at that club or this. So it's a memory. Every song has a memory for us, and like just what Albert is, like I can tell records. I can bring up. I can play some records that I could, I was, and it'll bring me, and I start thinking about Albert and what we were doing that time. That's how bad it is for me, you know.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.